Call to order tonight's meeting of the Keizer Traffic Safety Bikeways Pedestrian Committee. First, we'll do approval of minutes, and then I will introduce our new position. We have a youth representative. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Are there any edits?
I'd like to make an edit.
Okay.
Let's see here. So the second page of the minutes, where it says, Member de Blasi commented that this committee doesn't have enough authority to do more conducting speed studies, and he would like to see the number of vehicle miles traveled. So it was more than just speed studies, but also I was saying I'd like to see the number of vehicle miles traveled reduced.
Okay. Any other edits?
I move we accept the minutes as modified, edited, whatever he said.
I second with the modifications as suggested.
Discussion? Moved and seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Now I'd like to welcome our new member, Ethan Eggert. He is our youth liaison. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ethan. I'm a senior at McNary, and thank you. I'm a senior at McNary, and I joined this committee because, or as a youth liaison, because personally, I'm very interested in cycling. I've been a cyclist around Keizer for basically all my life, and I also am quite interested in the climate crisis, and so just coming on in the local government to see how all these things are handled through traffic safety is very interesting. And yeah.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I'm making a few notes. All right. Next on our agenda is volunteer appreciation. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Dawn Reichley-Balon. I'm a member of the Volunteer Coordinating Committee, and we have a proclamation from the City of Keizer to read to you. It says, whereas the City of Keizer has built a strong community through a foundation of volunteerism, and whereas upon incorporation in 1982, the motto was adopted, Pride, Spirit, and Volunteerism, which describes our way of life, and whereas many residents of this community contribute to the well-being and welfare of all people by giving tirelessly of their time, resources, and energy. And whereas many volunteers assist the City of Keizer in performing a multitude of duties, often providing services that might otherwise be reduced or non-existent. And whereas many of our volunteers serve through city government on city council, boards, and commissions, and task force, and whereas our city's greatest resource is our people who are dedicated to the betterment of our community, and whereas the City of Keizer values each and every one of our many volunteers and wish to extend our deepest appreciation to all. Now, therefore, I, Kathy Clark, Mayor of the City of Keizer, together with the City Council assembled in the regular session, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as Volunteer Recognition Month. So I would like, on the behalf of the Volunteer Committee and the residents of Keizer, wish to thank you guys for all the time and services you guys have done to help make Keizer a safer, a more bike-friendly place to live. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Dawn.
Thank you very much, Don.
Thank you.
See you in the neighborhood.
Yeah. I have treats to share.
Oh,
too. You know, 'cause you guys have a long meeting ahead, I hear.
no.
No. Well, at least I have the bike to ride home after the cookie.
Okay, so there's some
Oh, my.
Oh, my.
candies or some cookies. But if you're not into sweet, you like salty better,
Oh, my
hamburger
goodness,
goes
everything.
too.
Holy cow.
I know. You
Mr.
gotta get
Goodbar.
some good stuff. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Oh, that'll get me.
I know it's so.
Thank you for the treats. Okay, as we're passing around our snacks, next on our list is our appearance of interested citizens, and we have two. All right, Dan? No. Oh, that was Dawn, okay. Sorry, I couldn't read the first name. Okay, and then Hector Blanco, do you want to come up and talk to us? I hear you're here for the discussion on removal of the fire department from our paperwork?
I am, I saw that on the agenda.
Okay,
That's what's pushing button, I saw the push something, so.
there's a red button there, but if you want to speak at that point in time, whatever works for you.
It's up to you.
Well, you're here, go ahead.
Well, since I'm here.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, like I said, we were on the agenda and my fire chief just asked if I could be present to see how we fit, what role we play in this particular committee. And I was fortunate enough to get a little bit of insight from Mr. Sangster as far as how we got to this point. So we would be willing to send someone whenever there's a topic that you think would affect us, or that you would like some insight as far as fire protection or access. But as far as being on the committee, we yield to whichever works for you and makes it work for the community. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. We will talk amongst ourselves when that time comes. You're welcome to stay and be part of that discussion if you want. When we get to that on the agenda, or
I
if,
think I would like to stay and just
Okay.
go through your meetings.
excellent.
Was there, I think, there's
I just
Oh,
had
go ahead,
a
Dave.
question, and just a gen, does the fire department paint the red curbs for the no parking at any time, or the city, or is that up to the homeowners?
I am not exactly sure. I know we don't paint them
Okay.
in general, so I'm not sure if Mike does it, or if the city does it.
Like right in front of the fire department, I think you,
I know that, as far as our curb.
correct, and then I think we only have one more spot off of Newburgh. We painted something near the high school years ago that's some faded red, but we don't do very much red. So I don't know where you're talking about specifically.
In front of my house.
In front of your,
I know.
No, I was just curious if that was,
I know Anne Marie from our
I
prevention
have a
department
thing
takes care of like
off
access,
topic.
like near some of the
Well,
apartment
he's here.
complexes where they're kind of thin. She may have some white lines placed in there, but I think she places that onto the apartment complex or the facility that's there to fix those lines to make sure that there's clear access to fire and police.
Hirsch, you have a question?
It's kind of related in a way. The fire hydrants around town, my understanding when, especially in a new subdivision or whatever, that the contractor paints them. Is-
water department, Public Works contracts that to be done every X years, so.
Is there, well, like in our neighborhood, they were yellow, then they're red, now they're all
That could
sorts of
be
colors.
the gallons per minute that comes out of it, maybe something changed, but usually if a hydrant is set, standard yellow, and it'll stay that way, so I
No,
don't know
it
why
was
they would have
painted red.
changed it unless there was a problem with it, and then they changed it out, so.
My only point is, can the homeowners paint it? Because I don't like yellow.
If I may, like Mr. Griffith says that the hydrants are based on color as far as the gallons per minute that come out of them. So
Okay.
you can visually see if they're yellow or if they're red or if they're brown.
This one's red, but it had been yellow, so it must have been some change in category.
It could have been added to a loop in the system. There
Right,
could be
okay.
various things that made a change, and then the city takes care of the color and the hydrant.
We'll talk
and
about it
the
later.
system, so.
Sometime you're in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything to ask?
oh,
Yes, sir. No?
I have all these questions. Does the fire department have an opinion about speed bumps and speed tables interfering or not interfering with your, getting to a house, getting to an incident?
No, not generally. Ours is more access, if it's wide enough for us to be able to get vehicles into there. As far as speed bumps, potholes, whatever there may be on the road, we just adjust to those and try to park as safely as possible from the structure. Generally, we try to get 1.5 times away from the height of the structure.
Okay.
But access is basically what we're looking for, roll-away curbs, and Anne Maria from Fire Prevention, again, that would be something that she reviews during the review process as far as anything new and then old, but no, sir, the speed bumps don't change anything as far as cars. Slows us down a little bit, but that's okay.
It's a good question. Any other good questions come to mind? We may have more in the future, now that we know you're available.
I appreciate it, and anytime you'd like.
Well,
to,
this kind of reinforces that we should
Representative,
touch base with them once in a while.
Yeah, maybe that's, I'll think on that, on how to best approach, having you come more often when we have questions to ask you, or something interesting on the agenda.
thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay, those are all the interested citizens we had on our list. So next is our presentation by DKS. To share with DKS, the engineering firm, this is Scott Manser. And he's going to present to us the updates to the MUTCD.
Hello, Scott Manser with DKS Associates. Ethan, I was going to say to you, if you love bicycle facilities and you want to design bicycle facilities, consider becoming a civil engineer. Just yesterday, we had the Future Engineers Day here at the Keizer City Center, where I actually had a table of McNary students at my table, just that they're interested. But if that's something you're interested in, I encourage that.
And I have literature on Oregon State.
I'm Scott Manson with DKS Associates. I'm here to, Bill requested I share some of the changes to national standards as it comes to traffic engineering and traffic implementation, and how it might relate to this group and the recommendations that you make. So I prepared a short presentation, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll go through a few slides and talk about some of the changes and give you some opportunities to answer questions. So the manual on uniform traffic control devices, that's what traffic engineers use throughout the state and across the United States. And we want every stop sign in the United States to be red, and we want, the traffic controls to be uniform. And so there's standards that we have to follow anytime we're applying traffic engineering. And we use the MUTCD for kind of determining those standards. And it only changes every 10 to 15 years, and an update just happened in December of 2023. So I was just going to share a little bit about some of those changes. Again, the national standards require traffic control devices, signs, traffic signals, roundabouts, pavement markings on all streets and highways, and that applies to highway, like Department of Transportation streets, that applies to local streets and neighborhoods. So that's what we apply as we go through this process. So here's the first update that was proposed, or is a new standard, and that's related to stop signs and yield signs. In the past, and for those of you, I lived in Keizer for 17 years, and I've mentioned to Bill several times, I know a few stop signs I can tell were installed for speed purposes, slow down traffic through a neighborhood. And so the new standard is agencies are no longer able to install stop signs just on the sole purpose of slowing, to basically calm traffic in an area. And the next slide, I'll talk a little bit. They actually have warrants, so it has certain thresholds for when you install stop signs. Anytime you have a two-way stop, so you have a major street and a minor street, you're always allowed to put stop signs on the minor street. But when you want to convert a three-way stop or a three-way intersection or a four-legged intersection, you actually have to meet volume thresholds for when you want to stop all of the different approaches. Does that make sense? We want, and what the studies were showing is agencies were putting stop signs for speed reduction in locations that made no sense, and so cars just weren't stopping. And they're actually seeing an increase in crashes with pedestrians and bikes because the cars were coming to a complete stop, and that's what the safety issues that were being created with those stop signs. Any questions before I move on? All right. So this is some of the changes related to speed limits. In the kind of prior, many of you are probably familiar that a lot of the speed requirements ODOT used to set all the speeds for roadways in Oregon. And for example, in residential areas, we had a statutory speed of 25 miles per hour. You had statutory speeds of 55 miles per hour on facilities outside, on rural areas where you haven't had an engineering study to determine what those speeds are. Well, all that's out the window, and agencies now have much more flexibility on determining what speeds are. For example, if Bill was to do an engineering study in a subdivision, you could actually change the speeds down from 25 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour. And you used to have to do a speed study and determine what the 85th percentile speed, and usually in that area, that 85th percentile speed is what would set the speed. 85th, when I say 85th percentile, you would measure 100% of the vehicles, and you would set the speed for about what 85% of the vehicles were traveling. So that would say that you're setting that speed. There's still 15% of the traffic that's actually traveling above that speed. But usually you would use that sweet spot to try and set the speed. And now there's been a lot of studies that that doesn't always result in the best design for roadways. And so they've given flexibility to agencies to do engineering studies and actually use somewhere between the 50th percentile and the 85th percentile. So you're going to start seeing a lot more agencies with the ability to actually slow posted speed, reduce those posted speeds on city streets. And that's kind of what we're talking about, the statutory. It really defers to state rule, and ODOT has already made some, and the legislature has already kind of deferred a lot of the speed determination for counties and cities to the local jurisdiction to make those decisions. But it's not just, hey, we can go and change whatever speed. Bill gets complaining, hey, I want to change the speed from 45 down to 25 miles per hour. You can't just go make that change. You actually have to do an engineering study, do a speed evaluation, look at the level of traffic, look at the safety information, and make a judgment, an engineering judgment to determine what we feel the safe speed is. So it's going to give things a little bit changing.
So if we wanted to say all residential streets were going to be 20 miles an hour, would we have to do an engineering study, and would that have to be for every residential street in Keizer?
I believe that's what the city of Salem is in the process of doing. I think I just read a little bit about their 20 is plenty, and they're looking at kind of evaluating residential streets, but you're still going to have to go in. The statutory law says that you have to go in and put posted, because now you can go into a subdivision and your statutory speed is 25 miles per hour. You don't have to put speed signs everywhere. If you're going to go to that slower speed, it is going to come at a cost because you're going to have to go in. But there's not a lot of guidance for what you need to follow, but there needs to be an engineering study that's documented that the city has to support that change in speed. So I'd say if you have two subdivisions that are very similar and you do an engineering study and make that recommendation in both of those, then I can see that could apply.
So the engineering study, if I got this right, is based on what the cars are doing, automobiles. So the fact that you've got no pedestrians, or you've got 500, where does that end? Does that even enter in to the engineering study?
Yeah, that would be part of the engineering study, because you could also, your recommendation for reducing that speed could be there's no sidewalks in the subdivision, and you've got 50 pedestrians walking along the street with no sidewalks, and it's very narrow. Therefore, our engineering study, because of the pedestrian
And
impacts,
bikes and all that
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Yeah, and that engineering study isn't just volume of traffic too, it's speed, and we also look at the crash data. Are there crashes occurring in this subdivision, or, because there's a lot of subdivisions in Keizer where there's no stop signs, and you just have, and so there's a lot of close calls, and I guess by changing from 25 to 20, are we seeing safety-related crashes that are actually occurring in those neighborhoods that would justify maybe
A real elementary question. I'm not familiar with who can do an engineering study? Is that something that Keizer can do itself, or is it something that it would need to subcontract out, or what?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the ORS requirements, but I believe it says it has to be stamped by a registered engineer, civil engineer in the state. So if the city had a registered civil engineer, then the city could make those engineering determinations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may, some of you may be aware that the state ODOT has relegated speed setting to the cities and counties within the state. Not statewide, but Keizer falls into that. I've looked into it with our contract engineering firm to see what it would take for Keizer to be able to change speeds without going through the state, through ODOT. It's not as simple as it might seem on the surface. Our engineering firm has not yet decided if they want to take that on, because it's kind of an infrequent kind of an activity, if you will. But on top of that, I did learn that initially, even if we went that way, for a period of time, and that's undetermined what that looks like, a period of time, ODOT will review those recommendations made by the city engineering office before they're approved. So I don't know if that's 2 or 3 scenarios or exactly what it is. And my understanding is so that it's done properly and not on a whim by a city or an agency that just feels they want to do something that may not necessarily be needed, okay? So there's process that has to happen to get there. I'm not sure if we as a city of Keizer are going to get there, but I'm still evaluating. So I just wanted to share that with the committee because I know there's been discussion about lowering speed limits and it being relegated to the city's authority and all that. So that's the status of that part of that program.
So what I heard, to tag on to what Bill just said, I chatted with Salem's traffic engineer not too long ago. We still have to follow ODOT's policy and procedure, and we need to be trained by ODOT to do it on our own, basically. So what you're referring to is whether or not our engineering firm wants to take on that type of training.
Right. And get the ODOT training, and then the other part of it for them is, will the training stick? Because how often are they going to do it?
Right.
You know, and so they're evaluating that. I don't have a solid answer yet. And I understand they do work for other cities too, so there is that opportunity, you know, economy of scale, if you will. But still, you know, changing speeds is not something that happens often. So that's part of the evaluation.
Bill, and both of you actually, with the governor's plan or giving the okay to the cities to grow physically, the urban growth boundaries are allowed to be moved. So there's theoretically going to be, some cities or towns are going to have a lot more development. Do we have to wait till after we've made the development and then take a look at the traffic? For example, if you develop something along, I don't know, Wheatland River Road, and there's nobody out, it's farmland now, and so, well, it's okay to go 50 or whatever. But we're going to put in 200 houses in the next 5 years or 10 years. Can we change the speed now instead of waiting until it becomes a problem? Since we can forecast, you put 500 more drivers per hour on the road out there, we're going to end up having to lower speed limit.
I think it might be possible. That's kind of a scenario I hadn't thought about. I think it might be possible as part of the overall urban growth boundary expansion process and studies necessary for that. But again, I truly believe we still have to have ODOT's approval.
So they're still in charge.
They're still.
And wouldn't we have to have?
I won't say they're in charge, but they have to agree, I guess.
Wouldn't we require a traffic impact study when there's a large development like that? And they would do the analysis for us, and then we can project from that.
Yes, absolutely.
But But they're looking at existing, if you do a traffic study and look, we don't want to look at what's existing now. But I want to look at what's going to happen 15 years, well, when's the last traffic study we did, 18 years ago or something? I don't want to wait those huge gaps, so we should be able to forecast, for example, the number of trucks you're going to have coming down River Road once they decide that Brooks exit's going to be a truck depot. And we're going to triple or quadruple the number of trucks coming down River Road, because they don't want to go, I mean, can't we forecast that?
They do those studies when they do those improvements. So we can get you those information if you want. I guarantee you ODOT did it.
As far as the expansion of the urban growth boundary and the governor's order on that, that really doesn't apply to Keizer.
How come? We're getting off topic, I'm sorry.
No.
He came all the way.
That's really related to affordable housing, and because we share an urban growth boundary with Salem, it becomes a much larger decision and discussion, and it does not necessarily directly apply to Keizer. That's the best answer I have
Yep.
from my understanding of it, and I'm not an expert, but I have followed this a little bit, because it does have potential impact for what the infrastructure of Keizer is and might have to be. But everything I've read and everything I've been told is that provision really won't apply to Keizer.
Thank you.
Hirsch, you have a question?
I just want to double check with Bill. Anytime we do a study or request a study, is it budget considerations?
Yes.
Okay. It's not free, in other words.
No, we rely on consulting engineers, whether it's AKS engineering staff, who's our contract city engineering firm, or subcontracted to DKS and Scott Mansard.
I know they do things free.
It costs money. I mean,
Okay.
Because we don't have engineering staff as a city employee. They are hard costs that we pay out.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, do you have one more?
Yeah, one question. So, is there a way, or is there anything that prevents a city from wanting to be proactive rather than reactive? So in an engineering study, you're reacting to the situation, but if you want to, say, make a street or a neighborhood safer, you want to encourage more biking and walking, you want to set a lower speed limit. So the engineering study won't show that, right?
I mean, I'd say the engineering study will be proactive, and I'll give you an example. Because we go out, typically we go out and do a significant amount of observations, because there's the risk part of things as well. And we might go and look at a 2-mile segment and there's no crashes on that. But I can go out and I can see a 10-year-old child walking where there's no sidewalk. And those are some things where you're looking at the data, but you're also using common sense on how is that road being used, is there a cyclist on a 2-foot shoulder? And so we're identifying what the road design is and making recommendations based on that, not necessarily just the data.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, committee member Jim Strite, you were asking a little bit, I'll give you an example of, I think, what you were looking at. I worked on the Frog Pond UGV expansion for the city of Wilsonville. And on Stafford Road, they were building 2,500 homes out. And so it was a rural street, 55 miles per hour, but now we're going to have kids walking along this 55-mile-an-hour street. So in that case, even though there was long segments of a 2-lane arterial, we actually made them, as the development occurred, we made them do phases of improvements with medians and different design through the traffic impact study. As the chair was sharing, we identified different improvements to slow that traffic and make it more quickly modify from a rural 2-lane road where you don't want pedestrians to a new, more of an urban. We had separated sidewalks and multi-use paths for bikes and pedestrians, and we knew what that road needed to be long term, but we made recommendations for how to get there safely. If that helps.
Thank you.
Yep. So marked crosswalks, another change on METCD. That was something that was like, we're concerned about this location. Let's just go put some paint on the ground, and it's going to make it safe for people to cross. And again, the statistics were showing us that really wasn't the case. That just striping a crosswalk didn't make things safer. It did in some circumstances, but on a 5-lane road for 45-mile-an-hour street, it's not gonna, it didn't make it safer. And so now, again, there's, they want to determine, you know, at a traffic signal or at a, you've seen the push button activated rectangular rapid flashing beacons, that those, you can mark those crosswalks anytime. But if you want to do others, they've got design criteria to help you determine when you should put the crosswalks. And it has to do with number of lanes. Is there a median for a refuge median for pedestrians to walk through? What are the pedestrian and bike volumes? Because when you have a crosswalk that has one pedestrian a week at it, drivers aren't used to stopping. So you also need to make sure it's a higher use location. So it's giving you criteria for when cities should put paint on the ground for crosswalks. And unfortunately, when it comes to the colored pavement, there's now some standards that you can use colored pavements. And you've probably seen green paint put on bike lanes, especially in conflict areas. That was actually, cities could do that under a kind of a temporary allowance. And now it's standard. Now cities can go use green paint. Now, Hershey, you can't use green paint on the hydrant in front of your house. But you can use it in bike lanes.
I want orange.
And black.
And then they specify red, you know, for purpose, if you have just a bus-only lane, they've got different context. But really, for what the city would apply, it would be those green bikes that you can use that paint in certain areas now. Traffic signal warrants, again, similar to the always stop. There are volume thresholds for when you want to put in a traffic signal. That used to be a standard. Now they've changed that to guidance, because there was a lot of times where an intersection was not working well and it didn't have quite enough traffic to meet the traffic signal warrant. And now they've given that, they've said that's no longer a standard, it's actually guidance. So that gives a little bit less risk on agencies when they make decisions for installing traffic signals in certain locations. There's also some more criteria for when crashes are occurring in an intersection to help justify a traffic signal.
One question about traffic. We had some discussion last month about pedestrian movement around traffic circles.
Roundabout?
Roundabout. Somebody mentioned, well, we need a signal,
Yeah,
which I thought didn't make any sense, since you tried to avoid that by putting it in. But the question is about the crosswalks around the 4 crosswalks. Well, we know at Verda and Chemawa, there's only 4 streets coming in. So we have 4 crosswalks.
Right.
2 of them are real busy, but the other 2 aren't. So anyway, I was just curious if there's a standard about where the crosswalks are, and does anybody ever put blinking yellow lights or something to?
Yes. Yeah, in fact, that's a new, I didn't put that in this, but, because the city doesn't have any multi-lane roundabouts, but now when you have a multi-lane roundabout, so 2 lanes, similar to like Costco, the standard is now you have to have, for those pedestrians to cross a multi-lane roundabout, you have to have the push button activated beacon. And you can put them on single lane roundabouts as well. There's nothing, stopping you from doing that. But most roundabouts, when it's a single lane roundabout, it's pretty easy to cross there and safe. And the statistics are showing that it's safe. With the one, in my experience, the one-time roundabouts are a little bit more of a challenge, are adjacent to schools. When you have a roundabout, the school children, when they go up to a traffic signal or an RFB, they can push the button. They know that the drivers, they know when they can cross. At a roundabout, it's a little more, you have to wait for those vehicles to stop. And school children are not as comfortable crossing at roundabouts than they are at other traffic signals without that push button activated.
Some of us, as we get older, feel the same way.
I guess this kind of jumps back a little bit with the marked crossings, but related to that. Is there a thing that either prevents or allows for a raised crosswalk?
At certain intersections?
Either at intersections or mid-block things, or like the roundabout, so it will slow a car as they're approaching, as well as allowing.
I think it's really just that, I mean, there's nothing in the MBTCD that kind of says that you can't do kind of race crossings. It would probably fall more into the fire code and you know, is it, I know, I heard some testimony, I actually was hired by Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue because agencies were putting up traffic control devices all over, or speed humps, and it was affecting their response times significantly, and they had minimum standards for those. And so Tualatin Valley basically came up with primary routes and secondary routes. And they worked with the agencies to say, okay, if you're gonna put a speed hump on our primary routes, it's gotta have cut-throughs for our fire vehicles. So we're not having any deflection, it's not slowing us down by going through it. So it's really more of the primary or secondary response routes and how they're gonna impact it. There's no national standards as far as where to apply those. But you're not going to want to stick those on River Road.
Well, right.
It just kind of had the application and what makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking it would make it harder for a crosswalk because especially if someone is in a wheelchair or a scooter or something, they'd be going like this through the crosswalk.
Right. I think just as far as bicycles, we talked about green paint. It was a experimental approval for bike boxes. That's where bikes can get in front of motor vehicles. So that's now a standard, so you can use those. Also, you know, implementing buffered bike lanes. You probably see a lot of buffered bike lanes where you have a 5-foot bike lane and maybe a 2-foot buffer. You're making the travel lanes a lot of times a little bit narrower and it's still the same amount of space, but you push the vehicles a little bit further from the bikes. And so that's now a standard. And also bicycle signals. There's now, you've probably seen some of the bicycle signals that have the bicycle symbol in them. So now you can do bicycle phases with those traffic signals for bikes.
You want to go first?
I was just, you say easier left turns with two-stage turn boxes. I just wasn't familiar with what that is.
That's the bike box.
But on a left turn?
Yeah, I mean, it's for left turn when, let's just say you're in a combined lane and you want to you're in a bike lane next to a car, but you want to make a left turn at the intersection. The bike box is during that stopped, when you have a red light, it's basically a green box in front of the motor vehicles that allow you to go from the bike lane on a red vehicle and to get in front to make your left turn.
Thank you.
And that way you don't have to merge into the traffic to get into the left turn lane.
There's one on Hawthorne just before going over the Hawthorne Bridge. You can do that in Portland.
In Portland, yeah. I know many in Portland.
I don't think there's anything here,
And I know.
other than in my driveway.
So a lot of times I'll see the bike lane as it approaches the intersection. That last 5-ish feet has been worn down because cars are,
Right
yeah.
turns kind of cutting across it.
Is there anything that prevents, or at least allows, some type of protection? So the cars will, and it could be, I don't know, it could be a bollard, it could be, I forget the name of those things, that little rounded things that you screw on. Just something that, what's that?
Armadillo.
Yeah, the armadillo, you remember better than I do. So the armadillo, something that would basically, if a car goes over that, they know, oh, I went over something. That way it forces them to.
Yeah, you're gonna start seeing a lot more protected bike lanes, just because there's not a lot you can do in this. And there's also protected intersections, when you get to the intersection where it just pulls the bike up and actually puts like a little island in there. So there's design treatments you can do as far as like cheap, easy things. I mean, you can go up and put what you're talking about, they end up kind of being a maintenance headache. There's a lot of different, our hope is to try and get, you know, especially on higher volume streets, to try and get the bikes to a protected bike lane, you know, off the street on the higher volume, higher speed. There are designs you can do though to do exactly what you're saying, to get that a median kind of in that area.
Do they have any, when I go up to Portland, there's a lot of streets that are marked primarily bicycle or residents only, this is a bike, you know, 4 miles or something like that, quite a long ways. where it's primarily for bikes, do they have, is there some standards for that, or?
I think what you're talking about is like a bicycle greenway, it's,
Mhm.
yeah, it's more.
Well, it seems to be an awful, maybe it just, I end up trying to drive through them, so. Where I'm going, that just happens to be there, but they're primarily for bicycle routes. Or maybe they're just bike routes, I don't know. Lots of bicyclists.
Yeah, I mean, in Portland, they have a lot of cycle tracks, or where they'll just basically take a lane and, or make a street that's just for bicycles.
Yeah.
They do some neighborhood greenways where it's, if they're sharing, it's just low volume streets where bikes are sharing the road, in those areas. too. So I'm not familiar with the one you were talking about.
Oh, there was a bunch of them, never,
Salem has Maple Avenue all the way.
Yeah, Maple.
It's the Greenway.
So, one of the things Bill had mentioned too is just your neighborhood traffic management plan and just how things will, how these changes might affect, how you apply your program. And kind of that program was set to kind of reduce speeding and cut through traffic. So I really summarized kind of the three things that I saw from the changes and how that might have influenced is just your ability now to work with the city engineer to set new speed limits if you desire. At least do those engineering studies to evaluate that. And it's probably going to be an easier thing to do in neighborhoods than it is on arterials and collectors to make those determinations. Also, stop signs. I even saw before this meeting, I read through your neighborhood traffic management plan, and one of the top things talked about, is there speeding? Add stop signs. And that's, again, going against what's desired. So we want people to stop at stop signs. We don't want them there for speed so that people then start to ignore them, and then you have a student that gets hit by a car, and those are the things that's why we want to make sure we're following standards for this. And then just the placement of crosswalks, especially raised crosswalks, and those are some things that are sometimes used to try and reduce speeds in neighborhoods. So I think that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to stick around and ask any more questions.
thank you.
Any more?
Thank you.
Are there any trends, at least regionally, towards lowering? We hear more speeding issues than we care to talk about, but outside of this room, there are lots of places, other places that people are trying to reduce the speed. Or they come to us and saying, well, you need to slow it down 50% or something. But
Yeah. I'm not sure I understood your question. Are you saying, are there other cities dealing with it?
well, even areas, Salem,
Yeah.
Mid-Willamette Valley type places.
So Salem is just starting, I mentioned earlier, kind of 20 is plenty, and they're just evaluating a lot of their residential streets and looking at kind of trying to sign a lot of the neighborhoods with 20 miles per hour. All cities are always dealing with speeding and concerns and issues in neighborhoods and trying to come up with solutions for what those are that balance safety of pedestrians, bikes, school children, along with trucks, and just kind of trying to balance the safety of everyone using those streets. I would say there's never a perfect solution. And, there's always a balance, trade-offs that you have to deal with when you're looking at improving safety.
All right. Thank you, Scott, for everything you showed us and for bringing it full circle back to how it applies to what we have here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. And thank you, Bill, for your input as well and setting all this up for us. All right.
Because we have another edit to that traffic management plan.
I thought that would have been edited out. I'll have to see what that was about, so I appreciate it being brought up. I'm making a note. Well, next on our list is the ODOT speed zones discussion, so that ties right in. Did everyone have a chance to look that over on our website? Okay. Does anyone know where that came from or why we have it there? Do we want to keep it there? I didn't find it informative, personally.
Well, I kind of got more from Scott.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I did too.
If I understood it correctly, it was basically proposing a study that happened, I thought, back in 2020 or so. It was a number of years ago. And so the question I had was, well, what was the outcome? Because at the time, it was really, as I understood it, looking at the option of the 85th percentile, which is kind of just saying that you're designing your roads for cars. Essentially, it sounds like the outcome has been now to essentially open it up to be able to consider more things like pedestrian safety and as speeds are set. So
It's possible that's
anyway,
the-
at the time that was posted, it was more or less uncertain as to what the approach would be.
That makes sense, and if there were studies like that done across the state, which helped tie into the changes that we saw, but unless anyone knows with certainty, do we want to keep it there? I mean, it's not doing any harm, it's just not very helpful in my opinion.
It's somewhat outdated from,
2019, I think, is what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, can we remove it? Or Mike, do you know anything about the history to that?
That's where we came up with that for the speed studies that we do in neighborhoods, the 85th percentile. Is that, I missed the beginning of that as Scott was leaving, and I was saying goodbye, so I missed it.
On our website, there's a section, it's the slideshow of explaining speed zones and how they work, kind of. I can't even describe what it was. And I came across it and wondered what it was for, why we have it there. So unless anyone here has a reason to keep it, I suggest we remove it, because it's not very informative.
Yeah.
Okay, Don, how do we go about doing that?
his presentation would be better.
Yeah. Well, can we get our hands on Scott's presentation? Did he leave that with us? The one that we just saw?
Sorry, I didn't hear what you asked.
The presentation we just saw, did he leave that with us?
I have it so I can email it out to everyone.
We could post it.
Can we
And
put that
post
on
it?
our website instead?
Yeah,
Rather than sending it out to us, just put it there and let us know.
and just replace the ODOT zone information. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great, thank you. Well, that was an easy conversation. Let's see what my notes were. Nothing, all right, moving on to 5C, climate-friendly and equitable community discussion. Well, we're counting on Counselor Hussman to help us with that, but Mike, do you have something?
Well, the only thing that, what I was bringing up, and it was the email I sent to Shane too, is that because land use and transportation are so intimately tied together, as well as climate-friendly communities are tied to transportation, it just seems logical that we should be part of any planning efforts. And to date, there's been planning for this, but there hasn't been our input. So I think beyond this, I think any land use planning efforts by the city and transportation, of course, should have at least one of our members on that planning team before it then goes out to the public for comment.
So if they establish a committee to do the planning,
So
we'd like to participate.
Yeah, including with this climate-friendly and equitable community planning they're doing right now.
The city is?
Yeah, we're on the list.
Yep.
And it was brought up in one of the city council meetings recently, just that planning is handling it and they're involved with it. I may have a note somewhere, hang on.
And I get that they're involved in it, and obviously they belong in the discussion, but I think, as Hirsch could attest, a lot of times things happen, and we wish we had had a voice in the room.
I concur with you, Mike, that we should have some level of input, whether we're actually on the committee or go to a meeting that's going to be focused on transportation or whatever. I think we have to have some input on this one.
Why don't I look into how we can have a voice to
Yeah.
this and see what the right approach is? Because I
Because-
have some ideas in mind, so let me see.
Because in the distant past, there was some land use ones, and the Bikeways Committee had input on it before the merger. So, yeah. There's not a lot of land use changes per se in Keizer. As Bill alluded, the urban growth boundary is way beyond Keizer at this point in time. But when we get there, or if we're starting to talk about it, then we should have some alternative mode input on bikes, pedestrian, transit, all that.
Well, and even with this thing where it's within your existing boundary, how
I
are you
agree.
going to change? And I think we would have a lot of good input.
Let me look into that,
Okay.
and I'll report back on options.
Thank you,
Okay.
Tammy.
Any other thoughts on this topic before we move on? All right, that was easy. Okay. Our next one, we're going down there.
I'm sorry, Michael, I'm having technical issues. When the PowerPoint closed down, it's now not displaying anything on the screen. I've tried both computers.
I don't have it with me, so I didn't even have it.
Yeah, I have it, I can pull it back up on there so you can speak to it, but I'm just not able to get it to show it.
I thought we'd gone beyond all those problems.
Oh,
No,
no.
technology
Oh, no.
likes to trick us.
No.
Do you have, dual monitor setup? Is it not possibly, so it's on your screen but not up here?
Tammy, where's Griffin when you need
I
him?
know, he just can fix everything
Yeah.
for us.
Wonderful.
Need to put him in our back pocket. Well, what Mike is pulling up is a presentation, can I call it? Information that came from studies done here in Salem and Keizer for us to see where the problem areas are. I did look it over and it's fascinating. So I really hope we're able to make this work for us.
So, do Control P. Or, yeah, I think that's it. Did that do it? Did that give you options of a screen? No, all right, do, I do it all the time. Do the home button key, whatever that.
Yeah. The
I
micro-
used to do this when I was teaching, I used to be on top of it, but 20 years has gone by.
Yeah, too much.
When's,
Ethan, you're our liaison. Do you have any insight into technology that you can speak
I
to
think
it?
they're working through it right now. I think they're on the right track. Yeah, it's up your alley. Yeah. What was that? Okay.
Thank you very much. I will do this every day.
So I can,
okay, I can see something.
Oh,
Cats,
wow, nice.
okay?
It's a very competitive.
Salem Keizer Area Transportation Study.
Yes. So, this is a storyboard that they created, and it shows the top 20 high injury corridors in the Salem Keizer area. So if you look here, it's from 2017 to 2021. It has both, high injury scores for pedestrians, and bicyclists are in yellow, and the red are cars. I think there might be a way, not in this one, but I know there's a way where you can turn it off. So just gives, I don't want to beat this to death, reading everything, but it's just telling you where we have problems. And of course, this is us up here, and I'm sure you all can see what River Road is here. I don't think there's a way to put a imagery, aerial behind it so we can see,
Right
but
in
if,
front of Safeway, it's Chamawa, okay, right.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right there.
so if let's see, so that,
No,
okay, so this is all the fatal and serious injuries, and this would be the motorist. And again, it still shows quite a few injury crashes for non-motorists in Keizer, but then I'll put the
It's
whole
interesting, there's more on Chamawa than Lock Haven, am I reading that right?
So let's see, Lock Haven would probably be,
Right where the.
Chamawa would be
Kaiser
the yellow, one.
yeah,
right
well,
there.
here's the Indian school, so here's,
But no, right there is Chamawa,
Right here.
that's River Road. So
Yeah.
they're
Lock Haven is right where Kaiser.
Lock Haven,
Haven's
so
right
it looks
here.
like there's no accidents in front of the Dairy Queen. Good.
yeah, well, everyone slows down to get their Dairy Queen, I guess. So I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention, like, this is showing, kind of where we should be focusing on, beyond our list of projects. This is data that says, hey, we've got some problems in certain areas, and I know Hirsch likes to call River Road what do you call it, the Great Wall of
The Great Barrier
Very,
Reef.
very, yeah, and it is, and that's something I was gonna show was, let's see if I can bring this over there too. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, darn it.
Mike, it does look like there's some issues, a little bit Wheatland, but River North.
Oh, yeah, and I think that speaks to the fact that the speed limit has gone up.
Where?
Goes up north of where it says Keizer,
Yeah.
as you're heading up River Road.
Right there where the.
And then
red
you've
ones
got
Oh,
here,
yeah,
you've got
right
that,
past Lock Haven, yeah.
yeah.
Well, there's several factors for that. One is the bike lanes start to disappear up north. And you can tell on it that the southern portion of River Road to the Salem boundary is not good for cycling. And in some sections, it's not really great for walking either.
Yeah.
But cyclists, now the north part, we can, argue because of the improvements there, it's much better. But from Chamawa south, that's where injury, accidents for both pedestrians, bicyclists, and even motor vehicles.
Yeah.
And it's really clear right there.
Yeah. And I think that it also, what I was talking about earlier about being proactive, it's like, if we want to see more people on bikes and walking, we have to make it inviting. And to your point, South River Road is not really inviting to people who have an option.
When people approached me about commuting or even traveling through, I push them onto the side areas that are safer and they can move forward. I said, just ignore that section.
Yeah. And this graph or image, some of you may have seen this already, but, this is what it feels like when you're walking or biking on River Road. And to some extent, some other streets too in Keizer, even when there are sidewalks. But you feel like you've got your narrow little protected area, but once you get off that protected area, it's...
You can see that south portion of River Road doesn't even have that protected area.
Yeah. So...
That's strictly an area where cyclists need to ride on the sidewalk.
Right, right. Which then leads to conflicts between...
It creates another set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, like, where we can pull this data, like, actual just spreadsheet of these things. Maybe Scott's can just send it to us, but that can help go into our projects requests.
I'm interested too. It looks like there's a fair number of accidents along Cherry,
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
which
the north
to me
end.
is a alternative. I mean, that's the more desirable north-south bike route, and even Hal has a designated bike
So it's getting,
bikeway on it. Yeah.
it narrows up from 2 lanes to 1 through here, somewhere in here.
Where?
Cherry? Cherry does, yeah. So when you're coming across the parkway, you've got a short, and I can't remember what
You're
that
in
street
Keizer,
is.
it's just 2 lanes.
Well,
Left turn.
there's a short time where you're near the
There's about
intersection.
Well, that's hardly worth mentioning.
Right.
But it, when that was first built, I did a complaint because they had the merge,
Left to right.
yeah, left to right. And here you're as a cyclist, all these cars are merging to you. So they at least changed it the other way.
And that's-
But that's an area, there's a lot of state offices there and traffic coming out. And then the parkway itself, we've had serious bike accidents just at the Parkway Cherry. And that's a speed issue and, distracted driving kind of situations.
It's interesting. There's all the issues on Verda are near the parkway, at the south end of Verda.
Yeah,
So like from Chamawa to, quite a ways down there, go to the,
well, this is
that's
more
Verda there.
This is Verda right here.
Yeah, and you can, but from there to the traffic circle, there's nothing.
Nothing, yeah, and
Safest
I don't know
place in Keizer to walk.
yeah,
I wouldn't think so.
yeah, that doesn't even have a sidewalk there.
Well-
But it's probably because, you're getting away from the parkway, you're getting away from the school scrum.
What do you think?
Trying to curious what you're showing there. Are you fatal or non-motorist injury crashes? What are the difference between the red and yellow?
So, fatal is red.
So can you click on fatal and show Keizer?
Okay, so you have to find, see that one that angles off like that's the parkway?
So everything red is a fatal crash?
You
Well,
sure?
fatal or serious injury crash. According
And the
to
yellow are,
non-motorist, non-serious injury crashes. But,
Does this not match your data?
but that's over 10 to 8 years?
Well, that's
so it's,
a 4-year span, but
yeah, I don't know if you can click on one and it pops up, oh, yeah, there we go. So,
Now, does this include
2017, I don't know what 4th day
the
would be. What
injuries,
Thursday?
accidents that have nothing to do with a motor vehicle?
Yellow ones?
Yeah, because, Counselor Hussman was talking about his,
Parentheses includes auto and non-motorist,
yeah,
motorist related, so all injuries.
because we've, just on leading some bike rides over the year, we've had injury accidents on Wheatland, but there was no car, it was defective bike.
Well, I think.
But the medical response was done, or,
Right.
Well, they should be included in that study.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So, we could talk with Scott more about how this was created and, again, getting the data to inform us for future
Yeah,
requests.
I really like the map, except I'm really not too concerned, I hate to say it, not too concerned about Salem
Well,
for what we're doing
but for
here.
sure, yeah, we wouldn't
But
be asking.
It definitely reinforces my opinion on River Road.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, Hirsch, When we make it safer for bicycles and pedestrians, we're making it safer for cars,
Oh, yeah.
so.
No ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Okay.
Well, that's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Mike.
Are you going to see if you can get a spreadsheet with the data? Okay.
Do you want me to do anything?
Don't touch.
I'm gonna have to hire you for IT.
Any other thoughts on this topic? Okay.
It just keeps reinforcing, and we need to have that information, especially once we get into doing our transportation study. And that may be a year or two or more down the road, but this information should be thought of and included.
I'm really glad they did this study and were able to share it in a way that we can absorb it. Okay. Next is our project spreadsheet review. Okay, we'll just run through each one and discuss whatever needs to happen, starting with our active projects. First one's Verdun, Chemawa Northeast. Public Works is working on a speed advisory. You were putting up the signs last time we spoke.
Those are installed the next day.
Okay,
They're out.
okay. So we can really move that to, well, we'll keep it on monitor because it's the intersection that keeps coming to our attention. We'll just leave it there for now. Okay, Lock Haven near McNary. We are getting the RFP, but I have a note on that, I thought. From most recently, Bill said that we might get it this summer. Did we talk about that last month? No. That was the last I heard at one of the city council meetings. Do you know more about that? No?
The principal last night at our neighborhood association meeting, he was aware of all this. So that was kind of a good sign.
It absolutely is a good sign. I'm pretty sure when we first heard it was gonna be pushed back, till potentially not meeting, start of school, but then Bill Lawyer recently said, it looks like we're gonna get it in sooner. However, I'm gonna put a star next to that because I know with the ones we have for Alder that had to go back for repair, I don't know if that's affecting our future purchases or not, so more to come on that. So we can just change this to say, to be installed soon. And we'll hear more about it. All right, Candlewood, northeast curve, nothing there. Does anyone have anything to that? We were just monitoring for any future concerns. I'm sorry. Here is the Alder, oh, we're getting speed displays, not an RFP. I'm sorry, I spoke to the wrong thing. I was mixing the two different installs. Alder's getting the speed displays, those are the ones that had to go back. My bad. The RFPs should be on schedule. Let me caveat that. They were installed but removed, so do we know when? Yes.
So basically, they have the solar panel on top, and then there's batteries. So the sun and the solar panels charge those batteries, they keep them going. Well, apparently there was an internal issue that came from the manufacturer that it worked for the first week, and then it just quit. So we worked with a technician from Texas to try and figure it out, and basically, we shipped it back to them, and we shipped one back, and it is in the mail as of today, and we'll be getting that one back. And they didn't want both of them at that time, and I would have preferred to ship them both, but I think whatever the fix is, they can send us a thumb drive, and we can plug it in, and maybe that's what it is. I'm kind of speculating with that, so I want to wait to have them both fixed, and if we have to send the other one back. The turnaround was probably a week once we shipped it there and got it back, so the turnaround's good. My only note is we're gonna get them back up as quickly as possible, but one of them's in the mail, and the other one, I'm hoping it'll be a quick fix without mailing it back.
Okay, perfect. Just keep us informed as you know. I'm excited about the progress we already see, so thank you.
And this is the first problem we've had with those. The company, we've bought a handful of them and haven't had this issue before. So I haven't heard what it is, but
So what component did you have to ship? I assume not the whole sign. Is it just?
basically, yeah.
Really?
The whole,
It's a big
the whole
long package,
display
right?
itself. In
Feet
fact,
long.
well, in fact, they shipped us a box. They wanted to make sure the box had all the correct packaging and whatnot, so it's kind of funny, but a box came from Texas, and as soon as it got here, we stuck it in there and took it to FedEx, and
Interesting.
off it went with a sticker on it, and that was last Friday, so that's a pretty pretty quick, they figured it out, and it's coming back, so.
Good,
Excellent.
thank you.
Okay. Out for repair.
Where are we?
We are, sorry, I was making a note. We're at signs along bike path. I know last month we had a long discussion on this one. Do we know where this is leading us? Since we don't
The
have,
signs,
yeah.
Yeah, it's ODOT.
well,
What did,
the counselor was gonna take care of talking to somebody.
I have nothing to report. We're waiting, I guess. We replied back to ODOT with what the cost was, and it's just sitting there. So there's not much more we can do if they're requesting a bigger scope of that project, and we don't have a bigger scope. And the city can't purchase them and install them. It has to go through this process with ODOT, so we're kind of at a standstill. And Dave mentioned talking to somebody to get a ball rolling, so.
You could take this for what it's worth, I don't know if it's true or not. If you're not making immediate progress at ODOT with the person you're dealing with, find out who their supervisor is and ask them, just politely, what's going on. I'm just telling you what I was told, just let it go. That, very often, something will get done within the next week or so. Is that some projects are so low-key that nobody gets too excited about them except us.
Do you want me to talk to Jenna again? I'm happy to.
Yeah, I
Find
was
out
gonna
more.
say, I could mention that to Bill to go somewhere else, but I don't think it's high on the priorities, but it sounded like it was something, she was real gung ho to work together to get it moving forward, and so it was just kind of surprised that everyone here thought, isn't that?
that's the impression I got,
It
because
should have been done.
Pat Rogers was she interacted with us. We went out there and did all the legwork, and then she come back and, oh yeah, we will do that. Hey, by the way, city will reimburse you for putting them in. And it was all, wow, this took 2-3 years to get to. And then all of a sudden, oh, it's too small of a project.
Another concern I have is that it's April, and their money runs out in June. And somewhere before that, they'll start trying to save up money and start canceling projects that they had planned on doing, but they just didn't get around to. That's just not ODOT, that's every organization I could think of, every school and cities. So,
I was on a kind of a bike infrastructure tour just this week with Jenna, and she happened to mention this project as we were walking. And I think she perceives that the ball is on our court. And I also would not go up the administrative chain. From her, it basically was that doing an agreement for such a small amount was going to cost a lot more than the amount. And I think your suggestion of talking directly with Jenna, I think we're suffering here from one of those really mixed communication.
I'm just.
I think there's a lot of inaccuracies and we don't really know what the status is, but anyway, I think.
it sounds like are you saying we should just drop it?
No, not necessarily, no, I think that it's a question of clarifying with Jenna exactly where she is and we are and
I just want to ask what the options are. If this is off the table, what is on the table? What can we do?
She took it off the table.
Well, the options were $20,000 to $30,000 bike rest stations and things, which are all great, but then it would be for the city of Keizer to maintain those. And so Bill's stance, excuse me, was the signage is awesome. Let's go that route. And that's where it's stalled. Jenna's wanting more, and
Right, but we can't provide more, so
Yeah.
is that, now there's nothing offered to us?
That's why you didn't go up the chain.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm happy to ask if you want me to, or do you want to handle it in your?
I'm pretty sure, well, I'll have to go back in the emails, but I'm pretty sure Bill responded with, here's the amount, you know, they came up with for the signs, and that's where it's stuck at is, here's what we can provide, here's the services we can do, and wanting more over here, and then it's just stuck right there. So I don't know what the solution to that is.
Yes, go ahead,
And
Darsh.
Counselor Husband spoke with her directly, and it reinforced what Mike is saying, is that we have to have a huge project in whatever.
Nothing at all.
I concur that you should talk with her, but I would go up the chain of command. I'm an old state manager, I know how that works.
Yep. So do I.
Well, I don't want to go around Public Works. so
No,
Really,
no.
it's up to you and Bill to
Well,
know what
let me
means.
find out and I'll get back to you, because I know the last I talked to Bill was, he'll try again or reach back out to Jenna and see where we're at and go from there. Where it is on priorities and whatnot, with everything else that's going on, I'll just leave
Because
it
there was
at
a
that.
lot of legwork that was done when we got the go-ahead, and, you know,
Just wasn't a big deal.
if they had, ODOT, Jenna, hadn't said go for it, we wouldn't have. So,
I will wait to reach out to Jenna till I hear the go from Public Works. So we will just keep it under monitor status and discuss it when we have something to discuss. Okay. Thank you for all that, Mike. Lock Haven Northeast Bike striping at River Road. We made a motion last month to have both sides of the bike lanes painted. That did go to city council, and Bill is going to put together prices.
Yeah, DKS is looking into that. So sorry, I pointed there and you're like,
You ran out.
Yes, Hirsch?
I got to ride a little bit today, and down in front of Fred Meyer on River Road, in front of the gas station, they have put in protected green lanes for people that are turning into the gas station now. They've put in kind of protected lanes with green stripes and everything. So that's kind of what we're looking for.
understood. And that's, like I said,
Yeah.
DKS is looking into that, and they'll come up with their recommendation on what can be done. And that's a little more, we talked about our, like, Marion County just doing that, and that's, they do striping and lane striping and so on and so forth. That would be something that we would contract out, something like that. It's not beyond their scope, but we wouldn't approach that with, hey, county, can you just paint something? So that's why it has to go through the traffic and engineer, and then we'll put it out for, request for proposal and see what we get.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Mike, for bringing that one up.
Yeah, well, and thank you for supporting me. But I was just putting it out there, if someone wants to talk with me some more about it, since it was my idea about what I envision, which, is the Cadillac, but, I'll take the Pontiac.
I think pretty much that map that came up, that either you put together or somebody put together is what we gave them. So
Okay.
we'll keep you apprised at what's going on. I know when we repaved that section, some bike lane adjustments were done at that time, But aside from that, Bill gave them that map to look, or not map, but the schematic and the drawing of what you had put on there with the buffer lane and all that, the buffer on the bike lane, and so that's what they're looking into.
Okay.
Excellent. All right, next up is Keizer Road Northeast from Verda to, we have Ridge, but I thought that was not correct. To what? Isn't to where the sidewalk ends?
Well, we made a motion for them to do a study of it.
Right, I was just looking at the project limits. I think we have the project limits wrong, but it's irrelevant. Yes, we made a motion, it went to city council. Director lawyer was asked to find prices for that, so I assume DKS is looking into that also? Or are we doing one at a time? Do you know how that works?
I'm not sure. I know we've given them the one that, the one that Mike could talk about, and maybe at the same time, Bill gave them, I think we have 3 that they're looking
Right,
into, and just
right.
said, here, look at these, and they'll prioritize them and
Okay.
get them back to us.
Okay. Then we'll just put a pin in that till we hear more. Yes, Mike?
So, is this on Keizer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so not Verda, but it's from
Right.
Verda. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'll wait.
It's right in front of the church.
Yeah, okay.
I have something that's connected to this. I don't know, it maybe it's appropriate to bring it up. Do you want to wait till we're done?
How about at the end? We can, if it's
Okay,
something to add, we'll
that's
add it
fine.
at the end, because I have one to add as well. Okay, next, Chamala Road and River Road westbound for bicyclist striping. This was the third that went to city council for
Went
pricing
to city council.
per our motion.
I do understand that the width there is a little different than up at Lock Haven, so there's,
It'll be a challenge for them to engineer something, but
well, at least look at it.
we'll see what they come up with for us. All right, next is River Road intersections by, oh, this was kind of a catch-all that you were gonna talk to Salem?
Well, I tried, but Mike ended up getting some conversation with him.
Other Mike.
I haven't, from what I reported last month, I haven't had any more contact with the gentleman I spoke to, so, I found out information that they can, Salem is starting to make adjustments at their certain intersections, they're looking into each one. We talked about standardizing, and we are we're different than Salem because we have River Road, the main thoroughfare, and then Lock Haven, and so it's a little cleaner, I guess, if you say. We just need to decide in conversation with Bill Lawyer and decide, do we call him and say, hey, certain intersections, here's what we want, just more discussion. And that's what I left it with the gentleman, is we'll be having more discussion. So with that, I have not had more discussion
Okay,
with them.
thank you. All right, and last on our list for active projects is the turf fields at Keizer Rapids Park. We questioned if there was a traffic study done. Yes, sir?
Well, look, is that,
And it was brought, I asked city council.
is there a traffic study? Okay.
And I didn't really get an answer, so,
He's not here.
yes, go ahead,
Just
Darsh.
to add to this, we learned the other night that, at city council, that, there is discussion directly, in fact, it's supposed to have met today, city manager with the, manager of transit to develop the possibility of having bus service to the park. So that would impact
Absolutely.
positively traffic. So that was a very, very good sign from the city council directing the city manager. And he was meeting with Alan Pollock with the transit, so.
And I requested, through the city, the site plan for the park and what's being developed there, just to give me some insight into what to expect with traffic. And the way it is designed, for anyone who hasn't seen it, there's 2 exits and they both exit to, I don't want to say it wrong, to Chamala, so that there's no extra traffic on the park road, I'll call it.
Walsh Way.
Thank you. Okay. So take what you need to from that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing to have 2 exits going to the same spot. We're still gonna have a bottleneck, I feel, at Shoreline.
Did you want, we talked about that, did you want to bring that up?
Why don't we wait till we get more of the traffic study? 'Cause
Okay.
that will tie
Well,
to that.
a traffic study is probably the right thing in the long run, because that part, the master plan, there's a few more things in the master plan that would impact usage, increase usage.
And that was the answer I got when I asked is, well, the master plan of the park itself had studies, but I don't know if that truly captured what we're designing now. So with that,
Right.
why don't we discuss this next month with Counselor Husband as our rep and see what he can bring to the table and ask what we should do here so that we have a safe corridor before it becomes chaos. Okay. Any other thoughts on that one?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Dave, you wanted to add?
Okay, maybe, I don't know, Mike or Hirsch, what's the Wheatland project, Wheatland Road project that's been planned? Is there a plan for Wheatland Road? I thought SCATS had been involved in some sidewalk infrastructure,
Yeah.
changing lanes.
Yes, in doing any project like the Verta project, the planning process and design, it's like a 10-year process. And the Wheatland is the next project after the Verta. Verta is going to be starting here soon. In working with Scott and Mike Jaffe, Bill, and a couple other engineers, and some urban planners, that plan has been developed. I don't know, it's public, and the design has, but, you know, first you do the design, then you know, and there was tons of public input. And the next stage is funding. And it looks like the funding is going to have to be done in stages. But
the plan's done.
The plan is done, but plans do change, you know, the fact that, you know, we're talking maybe 10 years out, it may change a lot. But one of the big things is there will be protected bike lanes. There will be multi-use paths on both sides. There will be tree medians.
They don't have a picture of that, do they?
Should.
Okay, well, can we put, I think I know it's a long range thing, but that is, we're talking about sidewalks, we're talking about bike lanes, and we get speeding complaints about Wheatland and Park Meadow.
There would be all sorts of built-in slowing devices.
Right, but I'd like, since that exists, where would it be? Where could I go find it?
I'm assuming Public Works.
Mike, do you have it?
I'll figure out where and let you know.
Okay, because I think that should be on our list of, not that we had anything to do with it.
Yes,
but
we
if it-
did. I was on the committee.
Well, yeah, what I'm saying is that that's a lot of pedestrian, bicycle, auto changes occurring on one of our major roads. So we should be at least looking at it.
I do know that I saw that project on the last list of proposed SCATS funding options. In other words, it was one of, you know, there was requests for significantly more funding than available, and between all the different projects around Salem Keizer and in the SCATS area. But anyway, that was one of the ones on that list.
This
So-
would be a great one for you to adopt, as I
Oh,
called it,
I
and
can
put
just
it on the
adopt
major
it.
project
I live
list.
right there, yeah.
And keep an eye out for
Do I get to
whatever.
look at the Brooks intersection changes too? Because I keep looking, I went and looked for a traffic study, and I got the impression that the trucks will go to is it Mayflower, or whatever their parking lot is there, and they're not going to even think about going down to River Road and cutting through Keizer to get to the bridge. They wouldn't dream of it. But I don't believe any of that. And since if River Road gets busy, why not just jot down to Wheatland? It's almost the same distance to the bridge. And that is they're talking about huge truck traffic
I hear
through
you.
Keizer.
Would you mind putting on the list for the major projects? Dave will be owning this one to let us know what you learn, and then Mike, if you happen to find
Okay,
something
so we
with the
can put
city.
that on our just the Wheatland Road project.
Yeah.
That's one. And now the second thing is, do we have anybody that knows anything about baseball? I was always
Beaver
concerned
baseball.
about, Keizer Road, but Keizer Road is really heavily used during the summer because it goes up to the baseball fields. Was there 7 of them or whatever? And we don't understand it. I go up and look and going, where in the heck are we gonna park? I mean, and I went up and looked during a baseball game, cars are everywhere. And it's not necessarily illegal parking, but that road becomes a very narrow, just barely 1-lane road when everybody's parked, which is one issue, is that something needs to be done, should be done with that road and the parking. And I don't know if it's the baseball association or who's in charge, but that Ridge Road from Keizer Road to McLeod. And then there's no parking. The parking is an issue we should be concerned about because if people have to park down by the grade school and walk on that 1-lane road, and there's no sidewalks to the baseball fields, that's an issue. And if the baseball fields are owned by the city, somebody is negligent in allowing handicapped people access to the baseball field. And maybe we haven't had a complaint about it, but if I was in a wheelchair and there's fields that I can't get to, and if you're even with a walker or with a cane, we're just pretending like it's not an issue. And so it's really, I think it's an issue. If it's city property, then walking to all those baseball fields should be part of the city's business. And we've ignored it.
Hirsch, what can you add?
Well, based on city council meeting, you probably heard it, Mickey Walker is the contact person. He is the contractor that the city has given the management of the baseball fields. It's called For the Love of the Game Corporation. He was at city council doing his annual update, and I believe Tammy had it, you just recently sent a letter saying, hey, what's going on? Almost mimicking some of the concerns that David had. So I heard the city council saying, you need to connect with your community.
They haven't got back to us.
Well, I heard the city council say, you need to do that, but Mickey's the one, he's the one in charge. He does own the property, but they've contracted the services, the management.
Who owns the property?
City owns.
City owns property, yeah.
But the contracting and the maintenance, everything is this contractor.
Okay, Michael, if I went, if the parking lot needed some more gravel or pavement or whatever it has, is that part of the baseball deal that they're gonna keep care of? Or is that your, Public Works job?
I'll say the parking gravel is their responsibility. The shoulder right off the side of the pedestrian path / bike lane would be us. And you've brought that up to me in years past, and we've taken our truck and we filled in
Yes.
right along the edge of the shoulder there.
Well, I know that was kind of an informal, that was nice of you, but it was kind of an informal.
But the city it's not a nonprofit group. It used to be Keizer Little League kind of ran it. No, it is a corporation. For the Love of the Game is the name of the corporation, and Mickey Walker is the primary person.
Okay, I'm trying to think what we can do with this here. I don't feel this is anything that fits our scope, except to keep an eye on it and
Yes,
hear the.
and-
So
hear
they've
if-
turned, so it's now not the city's job
No, it's
to
just
get
not,
handicapped people to the baseball field?
I'm not speaking for the city, I'm speaking for us.
Us,
Yes.
okay.
So if there's, we can listen to people if they have concerns, and then we will relay it as we do. We'll look for patterns, and anything beyond that will have to be addressed
And
directly to the city.
Again, the city council did emphasize to Mickey to work with the community and to respond to their letter that was sent. So I would hope that you guys would keep us informed. Because there is a parking issue at times.
Let's just add it to the list and we'll keep an eye on any concerns that come up.
Ridge Road.
Ridge Drive.
Hmm?
It's Ridge Drive.
Oh, okay.
I live there.
You did? I walked
The
it there.
baseball fields was my aunt's filbert orchard.
Oh,
Before anyone else have anything on that?
Ridge Drive, what did you say? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Ridge Drive.
Yeah, okay.
So before we move on to the other pages, Officer Powell, I know that the Vertilane study was, the information was given to us. Do we have that somewhere that I don't know? Because I'd like to document that it was done so that if somebody brings it to our attention, we can.
Sorry, I briefly explained some of the information to my partner who came in my absence last time. I brought more of the data, I can give you.
Okay,
that.
is it on the list somewhere that I missed, is my question to my team? Otherwise, let's add it to the list so that we document that the study was done, and we have results.
Not sure how many stats that you want on that, but.
I don't even remember what we were targeting.
So it was, the north section of Verda.
Yeah.
The speed survey was done, at the 5300 block of Verda Lane near Calmia. In a week's time, there were 1,950 vehicles that traveled total in both directions. So really not that many cars in comparison to, we'll say Alder, which was my previous one. In that 1,950 round numbers of cars, 35% of them were under the speed limit, and the 85th percentile was only 31 miles an hour. So most of them are going fairly slow.
In the speed posted there,
Huh?
is the speed posted there 30 or 25?
Speed limit's 25, but 85% of all cars were at 31 or under. And yes, while speeding, it tracks it at 26 as a speeding vehicle. Well, yes, but we're not gonna go out and enforce the 26, 27, 28. In that week's time, there were only 41 cars that were over 36, and at the 36 to 40, there was only 41 cars and only 3 cars total that were over 40 miles an hour, as far as what would be a really good targeted vehicle for enforcement. So, yes, there is a and the problem is that there's really not a lot of peak in the speeding vehicles. It's scattered throughout the day. So it's not a huge concern for speed, and the data would show that most of them are actually under, they say 31 miles an hour. We travel it, I travel it, and do some enforcement out there. It's just hard to sit and dedicate time.
So it's still pretty slow.
Yes. We've done multiple, my previous study was Alder, before we put up the speed reader signs. Yes, that one, which I could have told you without a study, because I work Alder a lot. There is a speeding issue on Alder, Dearborn, McLeod, those type of roads. North Verda is not.
Okay, that's good to know.
So, do you see the inverse, any peak or bimodal slowdown? Like, so, you've got your distribution of speeding, or speeds, and I guess what I'm trying to get at is, are you seeing a rush hour depression of speeds?
The highest, just looking at a chart, the highest number of cars, unfortunately, that's also going under the speed limit, but the highest number of cars that were in the 36 to 40 were after 4, so not school related.
So, yeah, I'm saying, are you seeing where, because of the heavier traffic times of the day, that might be keeping people more at or below the speed?
I'll speak to experience on that one. Verda doesn't have enough traffic to congestion
So you don't
slow
see
and
that.
down.
Okay.
River Road, yes. After 8 and before 6, it's almost impossible to really be speeding on River Road because of congestion. Verda doesn't have that volume to do that.
Any other questions on that one? Now we'll document that that was done. Thank you for all that information. That was very helpful. Another one was brought to my attention via an email from Mayor Clark, because it was brought to her attention, and we're just gonna put this on the list, but it's not in the scope of what we do here, and that's, Lock Haven, coming from Keizer Station, turning into the post office, to give a visual of where we're talking.
Turning in,
So by River Road, almost.
Yeah,
Lock-
close to River Road. Lock Haven, close to
Okay.
River Road, turning by the post office. And on the road are those bollards?
what are they? Yeah, so you can't turn.
Yeah.
Right. During the high congestion times in the morning, people are, because of the, split to 2 lanes, and they can't get to the left turn lane because of those obstacles, even though there's room for them to get there. If they could approach it, they're going over the bollards, or sometimes into oncoming traffic lanes to get around, to get to that turn lane is what was described to me.
I've never seen that.
I haven't either, but it was, brought from someone via email, and, I just thought we could put it on our out-of-scope list so that we have it
I'd like to see
documented.
how that's done.
I want to go see somebody, I gotta go up there in the morning.
Right, one was,
They go
I
right
think
over
that's
the
the way
curbs.
I pictured from the email was, the first one was a truck, and then someone tried to follow the truck, realized they couldn't make it over, and then went into oncoming lane to go around and get into where they wanted to go.
Is that for westbound traffic to turn left into the post office?
No.
Well, it's at the
west-
location
They
of
want
the-
to turn left on the River Road, but the River Road left turn lane's only a block long, and if you get 2 blocks,
Right.
so they just drive over.
This reinforces the need for the bike.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And in the email, if I'm recalling correctly, Director Lawyer said he's gonna look into this. So it's being addressed. And-
Well, just as a piece of information, the Wheatland Road left turn lane, which seems to me long enough, but I've seen people where that left turn lane is stopped the left lane of River Road through the McNary Estates signal back up, but that's rare, and I didn't see people just
Well, it's-
driving into the oncoming traffic.
It's very difficult to engineer for stupid.
And in this case, knowing, we all know the configuration there, I don't even know what options we can do, but that's not,
Well, there's
I'm not an
always-
engineer.
Off-ramps go up.
More bollards, I guess.
Yeah, but we don't want to put obstacles in the roadway, that's a recipe for disaster.
Those actually slow traffic down.
But that's not the problem here.
The thing, I would argue that you didn't save any time.
That's another topic, I'm just reporting the problem.
Yeah. Well, I will say, since it's near where I am, yeah, obviously, a lot of people are going straight towards McNary and et cetera. But there are people that are, oh, thank you. There are people who do want to turn left
On the River Road.
onto River Road, but they're in the right lane that can turn also left. So it's kind of like some people are just kind of making the problem for other people by just not thinking ahead, I need to turn left, I'll just go to the far left. Unless, of course, you have to immediately turn off of River Road, but that's really, again, just an awareness thing.
Okay, well, we will see if this leads us anywhere, but we'll just keep
Yeah.
listening for more on it.
Document it. and
Yes.
then-
Okay, moving on to completed projects. The only one we have to talk, let me see what I have here. We got the feedback from the Cummings to Light speed table, so that is checked off as positive. I'm not gonna run through all these. Shoreline speed display, we got the feedback as well. Yes, sir.
So we've gotten feedback from the neighborhood about the speed table. Have we gotten any feedback from emergency services, of whether it's been a concern?
As far as the speeding or?
Slowing the emergency vehicles, because that's a primary, isn't that considered a primary emergency vehicle route or fire truck route or something like that?
Talking on Cummings.
On Cummings, yeah.
Oh, I thought you initially were short.
No, I'm sorry, Cummings. So that was one of the big concerns at first, was we don't want to put impedance to emergency vehicle travel. But we haven't heard that, to my knowledge, whether it's actually been an issue or not.
Hector, would you like to speak to that?
In regards to,
The raised crosswalk there at Cummings?
Has that been a delay or impediment to?
yeah, I don't
The speed
believe,
table.
I haven't heard any complaints or any issues as far as traffic or access lately, either on Cummings or anywhere in the city. Generally, the guys will let us know fairly quickly if there's having some issues or some concerns. We try to get to where we're gonna go as quickly as possible, but safety is always our main position, especially when there's someone in the back of our ambulance. You know, speed bumps obviously aren't the greatest when you have somebody in the back, but they just have to, use caution when they're doing that, including school zones, et cetera, et cetera. But right now, I'm not familiar with any areas that are slowing down traffic or our response to a point where we're not meeting our criteria. But I could ask again, and either,
Well, what we're trying to do here is start to track the improvements that are made so that we can see what's positive and what's negative, so that on future projects, we have that analysis. And that's why we're asking for your feedback from that perspective, because we've heard it from the public and they're very pleased with this. And so
Okay.
we want to make sure that all around the city's taken care of.
yeah, not having enough information on your current projects, I can't answer that, except that I know that our guys aren't complaining about specific areas in the town or in the city that are slowing them down to a point where they're caution. We have some areas where we have people crossing the streets where we don't want them to cross, and there's some other areas that we've identified which we're gathering. But as far as traffic, I'm not familiar with any areas for access or speed or.
Go ahead, Hirsch.
The speed table there by Cummings is pretty gradual.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more visual than elevation. And it's very nice. I know the Cummings Elementary, their feedback is positive.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And definitely bring to our attention any of these that are a problem.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
I will add one thing, as far as maybe a possible negative to watch for. We haven't had any crashes at the location yet. I was nearly struck on, even on my police motorcycle there, because the car in front, when they go up, the guy that was gonna be pulling out, that car then blocks his view farther out. So especially for bicyclists, he couldn't see over top of the car because now the car is higher. And he missed seeing me following that other car, so.
Interesting. Wouldn't have thought of that.
How, but the 6 inches?
Oh, it does go up quite a bit.
More than that? Okay. Huh.
Because I've taken it on the bike and it was just a nice roll. So,
It's just that much more, it turns a small car into a kind of a pickup size, blocks more view.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good feedback, thank you. Something we'll keep in mind. I know we don't often, the city's not fond of putting these around, so this is just one more reason why that's not necessarily the greatest plan for most locations, but this helps us understand why, so thank you. Okay. Moving on to our last page, which is major projects, now that we've added a few for Dave. Does anyone else have any in the area they know of that we want to keep an eye on?
Well, the Brooks interchange,
You mentioned that one, it's on your list.
yeah.
Don just added it for us.
So we got the Aurora Donald interchange, okay, we're the Wheatland project, Brooks interchange, okay.
Oh, true, those are down here.
Just go up to the hitching post, check the traffic.
go to the hitching post.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's a good place to check.
I like the hammer.
All right, moving on to committee member input. Dave, you want to go first?
Got input enough.
Okay. Hirsch.
Several things. We're gonna try to, David and I, for a bike skills event, July 19th with,
Which one?
July 19th, that's with Kennedy, Hallman,
Elementary
Okay, so we'll be doing our thing, and we'll have the helmets. And we have one coming up May 4th at Keizer Elementary. And I've been asked by Marion County is now moving ahead with their rural transportation system plan.
Okay.
So I've been asked to help participate on that 20-year plan.
Nice.
And it starts, it'll start in June and work through June 2025.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that will be my major project that I'd like you to put on this list.
Don, would you
Because
mind
that would
adding
be
that?
River Road and Wheatland Road and Brook Lake Road.
Anything outside of
Will
our
it be
limits?
anything outside
Outside
the
the-
urban
yeah.
growth boundary? That would include Hazel Green.
Yeah,
It's all where all the parks, all of Marion County. It's not just, and we're talking.
Windsor Island Road.
Well, that's another area that, Wheatland will be done, and the next area will be Windsor Island. So put me down for Windsor Island for monitoring it.
Okay.
Because there will be some early discussions in the next couple years on Windsor Island, and our neighborhood will definitely want to have
Kids are
input.
still racing down there.
But yes, it would include basically Naples,
Yeah.
Windsor Island, Ravenna, everything out that way. As well as things east, Woodburn.
Yeah, you
State.
go all the way to Aurora, don't we? Marion County?
Yep. Pretty close there, and then all the way up to Detroit.
Well, we look forward to hearing what you learn and can share.
And Janelle Shanahan is the transportation engineer from Marion County. That's the point.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, our first Thursday bike rides from Keizer Rapid Park Family Rides, 6:30.
They're starting up?
Well, we've been doing them.
Oh.
It's just been raining.
First Thursday?
Well,
First Thursday.
I'm gonna put Mary Ann in charge of that.
6:30. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yep, I'm done.
Oh, I don't have anything right now?
Nothing right now. What you got? David?
I would just mention that the Salem Bike Club's Monster Cookie Ride will be a week from Sunday on the 28th, leaving from McNary. And this time it's heading east, so up to Mount Angel and Silverton and that way and back. So they'll have both, a 63-mile route, a 30-mile route. That one goes out
McNary
to
High School?
McNary High School, starting there.
Right
Yeah.
up Lock Haven and out Hazel Green and.
No, it'll go south a tiny bit and up Dearborn, and then catch the multi-use path along so just straight up Dearborn, catch the multi-use path along the Parkway, through Keizer Station up to, Quinnipiac, what is it?
Yeah.
Yep, and then 35th to Quinnipiac. So, and staying on that multi-use path, I believe, behind Target, so it tries to stay off the roads there, pretty much. And obviously, we have some difficult crossings at 99 Portland Road there.
Yeah,
Yeah, both ways.
I'll bring my flag.
Coming back, I'm not exactly sure offhand what the route is, whether it may go straight down to Wheatland. No, anyway, I'm not sure on the return.
That's April 28th.
28th, yep.
That's it, okay. Ethan, do you have anything you want to share with us?
I did have one question on the active projects. I don't really have anything to add necessarily, but for the project spreadsheet here, I was wondering, because it seems like on the first couple pages here, this is all ongoing stuff here. In the status, I was curious about what the monitoring means.
So we determined that word will help us just to, keep it on our list and, keep an eye on the situation and
Okay.
pay attention to how many times we hear about that location. And if we are seeing an elevated number of complaints or concerns, then we know to elevate our discussion as well and look at it a little bit more.
Okay.
But at this point in time, there's nothing that we're doing about it.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
question. Okay, I just have a few things. Sue, Mike, is the interconnect done on River Road? No?
No, they're still working on it.
Oh,
so
wow.
I don't have an update on that, except I saw a lot of traffic control north of Lock Haven last week. A whole ton of stuff was going on, and it's still continuing, so.
So until that's complete, they're not they're not connected in the way we intend them to be, right? 'Cause it's
Correct,
all or
so the
nothing.
signals aren't really
Mhm.
talking to each other, they're just set the same for each leg,
Right.
so.
Okay, that's
But
why I
when I
keep bringing it
know
up to
more,
share that.
I'll let you know, but I didn't have.
Okay, I'm just
didn't
gonna
have
keep
any.
asking you so that we can, let the public know when it's all complete. Thank you. I spoke to city council, so I have a few notes. I told them what we're doing. I've already mentioned most of the stuff I've brought up. One of the things I did want to let us all know is that DKS came and gave a report from a study to see if extending the 20-mile-an-hour speed zone that's currently on Lock Haven for the elementary area, to know if extending it to the high school was a good idea or not, and it's not. Because it's just gonna become too long and people are gonna ignore it. So the study determined keeping it the way it is the best choice. I just wanted to, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I would, because you've got so many entrances from there, you
Mhm.
can enter in the middle of thinking it was 25 and with no flashing, it'd be hard to know if you're in a 20 or 25 zone.
Well, this is even on Lock Haven, so we're talking 35. So I didn't even think about that point. I'm sure it was taken into account for the study, but that could be another factor into why it's not gonna change. And then another thing was middle housing subdivisions are coming soon to Keizer. I don't know anything more about that. It was just a comment that was made from planning, so I'm gonna look into that a little bit more so that we understand where those are and if there's something we need to talk about.
There's one on the cloud coming in.
Okay.
By Manzanita, I think. That's more classic, or what typical is middle housing versus just multi-housing like we've been building.
And off Berta Lane at the top of the hill, there's new housing, and it's kind of like townhouses, and they're building, that's a new mandate from the state, and we had to change all our planning rules to
Right.
meet the state, so.
Right, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just letting you know that I will find out more if I can, just as it comes available, and I'll share that so we're aware of where we're gonna start to see changes happening, and, as we've noticed on Verda with the apartments, when the new buildings start happening, we get concerns brought to us, so at least we'll understand what is coming. Okay, I'm gonna assign more homework for everybody. So I mentioned last meeting that, I'm willing to invite planning to come talk to us about Keizer Station and River Road North, because we had some questions and concerns that we wanted a little more understanding on. So I think it would be a better conversation if we provided our questions ahead of time so that he can come prepared to answer them. So if everyone, as they think of them, Dawn, would you mind collecting all of our questions, and then when the time comes, we'll share. Thank you. So just send them all to Dawn and she will compile what it is we're looking for so that he knows what information to bring us. Okay, thank you. That's all I have for that. Okay, moving on to other business. Brenda, you are up with our pedestrian flag information.
So I've been looking into this for a while now, and I've looked at many different cities that are doing it. First, I'll start with what the flags are for. So the flags are just a way of enhancing visibility. They do not guarantee a vehicle will stop, and that anybody who uses them should always use caution. So it's a pedestrian flag. They have some form of reflector on it, and they're intended to attract a driver's attention. And I know, so various cities have done studies on them, and it appears, this is an opinion based on what I've looked at, the cities that have campaigns like use your flags, you can be safe, watch out for flags, have better success because the citizens understand the flag program better and are more aware of why they're there and what to do with them than cities that just try them on a couple corners and see if they work without educating their public on what they're for. With that said, there doesn't seem to be any indication that having flags is a problem. It can help somebody get the attention of drivers and hopefully help them cross safely. But it isn't any more, I mean, it's better than a vest in that you can still see a vest with reflectors, but they're not actually telling you they want to cross the street. So at least with the flag, you're saying, I'm trying to cross the street. So that's good. The cities have different places that cities use them are places with crosswalks that do not have any form of signal. This is like if in the city of Kirkland, they have some guidelines of where you can put them. Interesting, I called Portland and asked them and they emailed me their answer because she had to go look it up. And she said, thank you for contacting PDX 311 to ask about putting up pedestrian flags. Pedestrian flags are not part of the Portland Borough of Transportation program. There isn't a permit that applies here. So while we can't sanction this, I can tell you that it's highly unlikely that PBOT will care as long as the flags aren't blocking a sign. If people call PBOT to complain about them, which is unlikely, the worst case scenario is that PBOT will need to remove the flags from the pole. The reason I called them is if you Google pedestrian flags in Portland, you'll find news videos that are rather recent and articles of various corners in Portland that have flags. They're usually homemade and somebody local is keeping them there, and there has been an accident or a restaurant's patrons are having trouble crossing the street to get to the restaurant. So the restaurant is providing the flags, or a neighborhood is worried about their children crossing the street. And these are streets that even have lights, like traffic lights, and they're still having children get hit by cars because distracted drivers are turning left into them or hitting bikes and that kind of thing. It won't really help bikes, but the flags are there trying to protect them. So the three ways that I saw flags was like cities that, like Portland, that it's just not sanctioned. So if a volunteer wants to put up flags, as long as it's not bothering anybody, they're there. There's cities like Kirkland that you have to get permission for it, and the volunteers have to like sign a contract that they're going to maintain them, and then the city public works make sure they're complying. And then there's other cities like Salt Lake where they actually pay for the flags and you buy them from the city. Those are the three ways that I'm aware that they do it. I would honestly, it's up to, like, you guys can discuss whether you want to have a standard where the city of Keizer is like, hey, you apply to say you want to volunteer and put these flags up, and now we tell you what kind of flags we want, what we want them to look like, and how we want them to be put up. Or we do like Portland, and if someone puts flags up, as long as it's not bothering anybody and it's safe, there's flags. So that's where I got with this. But if you ask me questions, I'll probably remember something I didn't tell you. Right?
So I like the middle path because it has some city input and control. My one fear would be that absent, well, you're putting it in you're blocking a sign or some other important reason to say no, that would it be just a default yes, you know what I mean? Which is what I'm thinking it should be, rather, they should have a good reason to say no, and I don't know how we sideboard that, but that would just be the one caution I'd have by doing it that middle path.
Seems reasonable. Hirsch?
My only concern is from a risk management standpoint. Who is liable? If the city is involved, the city is going to have liability coverage. And that means whoever uses it has to go through paperwork, maybe even training. I know the crossing guards for the school district, we're trying to arrange some for the May 4th event. Real quickly, they have to be trained and they have to be certified by the state of Oregon. Now, that sets up a, protection so much for the, so I don't know. I think Portland is kind of saying, if we don't see it, we don't hear it, and it's not ours. So it puts really the liability on the businesses, or the entity, but not the Portland. And Keizer, that would be my only concern. I know ODOT Traffic Safety has repeatedly said that this is not a good idea, based on their experience with Ontario and Astoria. They're looking at it from a different standpoint.
Right, right.
I'm just, is the city willing to take the liability? If I was betting money, I'd say no.
So my research shows that, but I don't have it in front of me, so I'd have to verify it for you, that this isn't a city liable thing anymore, than it's just a visual flag. They are not stopping traffic like crossing guards are. They are not protecting children and guiding people across the street. It's just like me wearing reflectors on my arm. I've been waving to stop the cars.
Wow.
So, I haven't found any indication of any city, state, or county agency that's been held legally responsible for misuse of flags.
That would be,
Yeah,
just
right.
my
I mean,
concern.
that's a great, it's a great question. I just haven't found it yet, and I have been looking.
Any other questions or thoughts on this? I recommend that we propose this to city council, and with our attorney there, he can speak on behalf of liability.
I like that.
And by proposing that we're not asking the city to be involved, but just allow it to be, and then if they want to make it a permitting thing or whatever to protect themselves from that assumption, then that's a discussion we can have. Yes, sir.
I might be able to speak to that slightly.
Okay.
There is a statute, I don't know the number right off the top of my head, but it's basically due care, that no pedestrian can just because they're in a crosswalk or holding a flag, they're not automatically granted free pass. They still have some due care and personal liability to make sure it's safe to cross.
In Astoria, the story that was told was they were playing with them. And Astoria actually did, well, they claimed to have done at least a citywide education. I don't know what the level of documentation is, but within a month and a half, all the ones were stolen or.
And that is a risk, but if the city is not purchasing and they don't have liability, they're just letting this happen, if that's the road we go down. And whoever is supporting this crossing tool, I'll call it, they would be aware of that, because.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Or else they'll learn really quickly, and they can determine for themselves how to monitor that. And
But a business wanting it, like your description of a restaurant or something, kind of makes sense.
right. So I will come to city council with you, Brenda. And did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, I keep thinking of the intersection of Verda and Lock Haven. I've watched people stand there for a long time period waiting for an opportunity to cross, and there's bus stops on both sides. It's a place where Keizer really, one of probably many, where Keizer needs to do something to allow better flow of pedestrians across the street. There's no crosswalk on Lock Haven from 14th to River, which I don't know. So, so basically the only opportunity is for you to J-Rock across, and a very long way. And again, at Verda, there's a lot of pedestrians, and vehicle traffic do not stop for people waiting to cross there. So I think, you know, something like the flags, which probably is lower cost, or, you know, a flashing intersection is really needed there.
You're talking at Verda and, Lock Haven and,
Verda,
and,
It's a T.
okay,
right there at the field.
North end of Verda.
okay.
Interesting, I never thought of that, okay.
I'm not sure that you could use the flags without a crosswalk.
Well, every intersection is a crosswalk.
Yeah,
And so in
but-
this point, the T still qualifies as an intersection. And so
that's
this
true.
would be a tool, but somebody would have to be in charge of those. What I was, are we all in support of this to go to city council with? As a
I'm a
committee?
no.
You're a no.
I'm a no, but that's.
You're a no.
I like the idea of at least trying it. I know city council, we've brought it to them before, and they're more than no. I mean, they're kind of not a hell no, but you know, we haven't convinced them. But I do see it as a benefit because we're not throwing millions of dollars around doing engineering yet, so we need something.
But again, somebody else, another entity would have to step up.
Right.
Yeah.
And is it going to be the neighborhood association over there at Verda in Lock Haven? Is it going to be,
Well, that location, I'm not promising anything's going to happen.
But I'm
If
just-
this is a
just
tool in the
picking out-
toolbox that
yeah.
folks are allowed to use if they choose to,
from that standpoint, I know what city council is going to say, so I'm supportive, but I think it's a no.
well, my question around that is, will Brenda and I go there on behalf of the committee or on behalf of ourselves?
I'm listening to Michael a little bit here, that we brought it to him before. It's being brought in a little different package this time, don't you think, Mike?
I do.
Let's do it. You
Do
know,
you agree to, Dave? Okay. We're gonna put together, I'll work with you some more on this, and we'll put together
Something
something
that's
cleaner. Yeah, and for the staff report for them to read ahead of time, and then we'll talk to them. And then we'll see what is discussed and if liability is the main factor here, or is there some other thing that I'm unaware of that's causing hesitation? Okay. Thank you for that. That was a good talk. Do you have anything more on that? Okay. Next is the neighborhood traffic management plan. I'm not going to talk about this much, except to let you all know that we're doing our second work session on Monday, April 29th. So anyone who can attend, I'm not sure how this one's being structured. I'm guessing I'm going to be out there and then just sitting at the table to speak on behalf of the updates and answer questions. So if anyone wants to join me, I welcome that. The biggest,
What time? 29th in the morning?
yeah. No, 6 p.m.
What?
6 o'clock is the work session.
Oh,
City
6
council-
o'clock at night? I thought you said 6 in the morning. Oh, okay.
We'll all have coffee
Mayor
together.
Clark has 6 o'clock meetings.
I
once in a
believe it,
while.
yes. So the biggest new thing that I did bring, I met with Adam Brown and spoke with him about having everything online. So I proposed to him a vision I had of what that could look like, where somebody accesses the website. And similar to the flow charts that we currently have, the Google Docs would lead them through based on the questions, answers to the questions that they provide, to see if it's being led to a traffic concern immediate that goes to KPD, or is it a public works concern, or does it come to us? When it reaches to the point of take this to the committee, it will also then go to the neighborhood associations, public works, and the fire department, so that everybody's aware of this location that is going to be looked at by us. And so whether or not the city adopts that idea or not, I hope to find out on our work session, because that kind of drives everything. Otherwise, we have to have the application updated and go down the pathway that I started. Mike, do you have something? You look like you want to say something. No? Okay. Okay. I was trying to read your face. You look like you had a thought. Okay. So that's where we are with that. So anybody who's going to come, I would welcome it. All right.
one, if you could send me an email to remind me of that one, because I don't have my phone tonight. But, I sent that one thing, that little blurb that I don't know if you saw it.
I want to look at it a little more. I did
Yeah.
see it, but I want to really look at it.
Yeah, and it was just, I can't remember if I think I stole it from Portland, but I saw something very similar in Eugene, and it's basically putting in the intro, kind of staking our flag what the point of this is, and it's about pedestrian and bicyclist safety and making a safe neighborhood. And one thing I saw that I really liked, but it may be too out there for us, is it's like you have the food triangle, you know, what you're supposed to eat a little bit of and then a lot of. It's inverse, and it's how it's prioritizing people, users of the streets. And for everything, it was always going to be, how do we make it safest for pedestrians first, and then you work your way down to not necessarily making it safer, like not safe for cars, but car flow is not your priority in when we design projects. So, and that would include, you know, the neighborhood traffic management, because as far as I read it, the point of the request is to make it a safer environment for everybody, but you start pedestrian bicyclists first, and then that filters down to cars. But again, it may cause cars to go slower, which is what we want, but that's not something that we should frown upon. So.
We want them to maybe go slower, but we want them to flow.
Right, and I guess flow is
Yeah.
perhaps not the right way, because we want,
We want out of
we
the
want
way.
flowing of cars, but we don't want it to where, they're the dominant thought of moving people in a neighborhood especially. That's
Okay,
just an aside.
I will take a deeper look at that. I just haven't had a minute. Okay, moving on to number 9. I know we're getting late again. We had a lot to talk about today. Okay, updates to Appendix A of the committee resolution. Former Chair Davis suggested that we remove the Keizer Fire District and the Salem Keizer School District positions from our resolution, from our, what is it?
Charter?
Hmm?
Is it charter?
I'm not sure what technically it is, that.
It was committee resolution.
Is it the committee resolution? Okay, thank you. And we would just invite them when we have certain topics, which sounds like the course that our fire department wants.
That would be fine. That would be fine.
Okay, okay. So how do we feel about that?
Well, you want the history?
Yes, start with the history of
The whole
what.
history was the formation of the Bikeways Committee, which was separate from traffic safety. And at that time, that was in approximately 1996. Mayor Coho wanted a real good representation. So we had somebody from Public Works. The chief at the time had Bill Alguire from the fire department, and the principal from Kennedy Elementary were all part of the original Bikeway Committee. And as time went on, there were issues with the school. That's kind of how we got started the helmet program. Was the school said they needed that, and then the city council created a regulation that helmets are required for everyone in the parks, and that enforced. And then the fire department, anybody cited would, once a quarter, Bill Alguire, who was a paramedic and everything, and Trevor Winnings would come in. He was on his motorcycle. He'd come in and we'd do a class, kind of a trauma class, and then helmets, and then their citations would be wiped away. So that was kind of the whole involvement. And then we also had a student from McNairy, glad to see you here, and helped with some of the engineering and bike racks that were put in. What changed? New police, new fire chief with a different priority. And budget changes. School district, well, as we well know, new principals moved here, so that was over 25 years ago. And we haven't, and then with the merger of the Bikeways Committee with traffic safety, those positions were left, and some of the wording in our bylaws or our resolutions were just kind of a conglomeration of both put together. We're starting to get finally some involvement with the school district. But I see, just like with the fire district, posing questions to them, calling them when they're needed. Having you as a point person for us would be wonderful. Would be great if we could get somebody from the school district. That's why I was so excited you come on board, at least somebody from the school district. But that was, you know, that was the history. And it worked for a while, but then when the merger of the two, and there was only, in the resolutions, there's 2 positions that are bikes, only on this committee.
Right.
And we used to have 7 people on the Bikeways, included the, and we used to meet behind at the Public Works building behind the fire hall, so they would just walk across.
Sure.
So that was the history.
Okay, that makes sense. I appreciate knowing that now. So with all that said, do we all agree that removal of them from our documentation, knowing that we can invite them when needed, is the right choice here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will make a motion then. Do you have something to
Well,
add?
I don't, this is maybe a semantics thing, but, you know, I feel like the school district, as much as they're struggling right now, they should be a little more, active, so they shouldn't just be passively waiting for us to invite them, because there's plenty of issues that the school district has in Keizer and throughout the district of safe travel for kids to get to school that they could bring to us and work with the city to address. But at least I'm not hearing that there's that communication.
Well, I think we're slowly building that communication here in Keizer, not with just having the principal from McNary partnering with the principal at Keizer Elementary on things and talking safety. Next year it'll be Weddle, and that principal's already said, oh yeah, we want to talk. So the groundwork is there. But as we read, there's a lot of changes going to happen to the school district. Are the same principal's going to be around next year and stuff? But there is some groundwork.
Absolutely, and I wonder if the better direction is to have the neighborhood associations be that contact, and then they can bring to us the school's concerns.
Well, you know, West Keizer has quite a relationship with Cummings. Ken in Southeast with Weddle, those guys with Kennedy.
That's what I'm thinking, is that's the
and
better.
We're with Keizer Elementary. I know Forest Ridge does have a pretty good connection with the Keizer Police Department. So, yeah.
Most of the city's represented by neighborhood association.
Yeah.
So I think that is the conduit to us. For the areas that don't have one, we can work with them as needed.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. With all that said, oh, there's one more component here. Number 5, and I asked about this last month, and I reached out to Hirsch for clarification on the title of the committee he's on. Under the purpose, number 5, to serve in a liaison capacity between the city and the Oregon Traffic Safety Commission. And I've been corrected to know what that actually is called. which is Oregon ODOT/DMV Traffic Safety Bicycle and Pedestrian Program Advisory.
They, were just absorbed by DMV, and Troy Gonzalez, who was the director, is gone, and now they're,
So is this the current title though?
that's the
Okay.
current title.
Okay, so with that
But
said,
they might change it again.
well, for now, I like to make it
That's
accurate.
perfect.
Okay, because I Googled the other one, it didn't exist, so that took
No.
me nowhere. So with that, I have a motion to amend attachment A of committee resolution to remove the language under membership reading representatives of Marion County Fire District Number 1 and Keizer Fire District shall serve as non-voting ex officio liaisons. The non-voting fire district representatives shall be appointed by the districts. That would be the first removal. And to change the language in the purpose section number 5 from Oregon Traffic Safety Commission to quote ODOT/DMV Traffic Safety Bicycle and Pedestrian Program Advisory.
Traffic safety used to
Second.
be their own entity.
Did you make a motion?
I made a motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously passed?
Yeah, traffic safety was their own entity, wasn't part of ODOT for years and years, and then ODOT absorbed it.
Okay.
Yes.
We did it. We finally made it through that one. So that's 9A and B. Staff report?
Did we do neighborhood association?
Well, that was part of the input.
Or is it on the,
Yeah, committee member input / neighborhood association. I just didn't read it all. Would you mind holding your thought, your staff report, and then you can tell me what you're thinking?
I'm not thinking anything.
Okay, Mike, what you got?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resurfacing bids closed today at 2 p.m. Those bids are being reviewed right now, and that will be for paving this summer after July 1st. So that's coming up. And last Sunday, we had one of our decorative lights hit on San Market Way very early in the morning, and we're going to be installing a new one next week. So that's my updates. Careless driving.
Welcome to Salem Keizer.
Yeah, the
Sign.
sign got hit again too.
We got hit, there was the one at the, down by South
Yeah.
River Road.
That's constantly getting, Salem's
I don't even see how that often.
with
that
all those
happens.
trees and.
Well,
It's not
how can you
hidden.
miss it? I mean, how can you hit it?
Well, if you're on
Never mind.
Why?
You can't engineer for stupid.
Yeah.
Officer Powell, yeah.
I already talked about the speed survey that we completed a month ago on Verta. So that was part of my update. The only other thing I would say is commenting on what you just said, you can't engineer. And because we've talked a lot about the intersection of Brooks and Alder, I will put this out there. We did have a crash, but it was not speed related at all. It was referred to Hirsch's statement.
That's an engineering term, but.
I've got one question, which is kind of a left turn. And this is just my perception. It feels as if there are a lot more heavily tinted windshields on the drivers up front in cars. And it's very unsettling for a cyclist, and because you come to an intersection, you can't tell. You can't see the driver to know, have you been seen or not? Are they looking? Anyway, have the laws changed, or is it more prevalent that people are tinting their windshields, or?
First answer is no, the laws have not changed. It's still 35% on all passenger vehicles, which means 35% of all light still has to go through it. And if anything on a passenger car is tinted, they all have to be the same. And then the second part is, yes, with the generation, I guess, there's a lot more cars being tinted to well below the limit. The only issue that we have as far as enforcement is our traffic unit, which right now is just me. Sergeant Leday is retired, and my other partner that was in here last month is now pulled to patrol. So we're the only ones in Keizer that are specifically assigned to traffic safety. And probably 99% of any tint citations are issued by traffic officers because we have an electronic gauge versus when I first learned and first became an officer, we had a little business card that you could put up on the inside of the window. It was really hard. And I've issued several of those citations and tried to explain the driver. Sometimes they'll say they've got a doctor's prescription for tinted windows. Yes, down to 5%, I've seen that with a doctor's note. And then that's the trump card. If it medically said it's required, rather than just wear sunglasses when they have the migraine, they decide to tint their cars. But I've tried doing the explanation of exactly your point. It's not only unsafe for them in the inclement weather or low light conditions, but as pedestrians, bicyclists, we all make sure, even as a driver on a motorcycle, I make sure that I'm making contact, that they see me before I go. So yes, it's there. It's just, there's very few officers that actually target tinted windows.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have two, since we're talking law questions. Two. So like on Shangri-La, you know, when you're coming into Keizer, it says don't block intersection. Is that a standard that you can't, so if you're on River Road and you're stopped by that new gas station because of the traffic light, there's a small place before Shangri-La intersects, and there's a sign that says don't block intersection, so I'm assuming don't stop at the light in front of Shangri-La. Is that because it has a sign there, that's where it counts, but other intersections, when you're stopped along River Road, say, you can stop in front of them?
Well, never in a marked with a lighted intersection, which Shangri-La has a light, right?
No, it's just before the light if you're heading north.
Oh, so like if you're parking on River Road for Dietz Avenue, we'll say.
Right.
It's common courtesy, and that may not be so common.
No.
So.
I just wasn't sure if it was just a courtesy thing or if it was a legal requirement. Yeah.
It can be a little bit of both, but it's dependent on the situation and the intersection itself.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Okay, we do not have council representation here tonight, so no report there. The next meeting has been changed to Wednesday, May 15th, due to this room being needed for budget. So just everyone keep that in mind. I know several of us can't make that change, so there will only be a handful of us here. So if any of us handful can't make it, please be sure to let us know so we cancel accordingly. We will not have quorum if that's the case.
I cannot make it because I'm chairing the neighborhood
Yes,
association.
you are excused. Don is aware of who already
Okay.
gave feedback, so that's not a problem. I'm just saying if any of the four of
I'll
us
just
that
be
were,
over here though.
so we can grab you and,
Yeah.
so only four of us will be here. And if one of the four of us cannot, we have to make sure to share that as soon as possible, is all I'm asking. Okay, who is the next rep for the next city council meeting? Do we know?
Didn't say on there, did it?
No, but I'll start bringing that information as well, so that Dawn doesn't have to worry about it.
It would be David to report in May. May 6th, I believe, is the day.
Okay, I'll be there. I'm always there. I'll handle it. Okay, anyone have anything else? If not, meeting's adjourned at 8:35.